It's hard to find a new analog horror series that gives off the same feeling as the classics like The Mandela Catalog, Greylock, or Gemini Home Entertainment. A lot of newer projects end up recycling the same VHS filters, emergency broadcasts, distorted faces, and familiar ideas we've already seen countless times. So while researching for this video and sifting through a lot of uninspired and repetitive stuff, it was genuinely a relief to come across a few recent series that actually feel promising. Some are already building bigger mysteries, while others have barely started and could go pretty much anywhere from here. So without further ado, here are 4 of the best new analog horror series you should watch in 2026. Santa Rosa Aquarium. Santa Rosa Aquarium is probably one of the most interesting new analog horror series I've come across recently. The story is mainly delivered through employee training tapes, customer service calls, promotional videos, and internal material from the aquarium itself. On the surface, it presents itself like a completely normal tourist attraction. Behind that corporate presentation, though, something is clearly very wrong with this place. Visitors disappear. Employees are given increasingly strange instructions. There are restricted areas of the facility, and some of the marine life seems considerably more dangerous than anything you would expect to find inside an aquarium, including dolphins that apparently have no problem murdering people. What I really like about Santa Rosa Aquarium is that it feels closer to an ARG than a straightforward analog horror story. You're not immediately told exactly what happened or what the creatures are. Information is scattered between different recordings, phone calls, documents, and small details hidden throughout the episodes. That means you can actually participate in trying to figure out what the aquarium is hiding. Why are certain parts of the facility restricted? What exactly are they doing with these animals? And most importantly, what is the real purpose of Santa Rosa Aquarium? The series is still actively releasing episodes, so the mystery is continuing to develop while people are trying to piece everything together. If you enjoy analog horror where you can actually dig through the lore and come up with theories while the story is still unfolding, Santa Rosa Aquarium is definitely worth following. Hydra Theory starts with something that already sounds completely insane. Oklahoma gets hit by 28 tornadoes. Obviously, tornadoes themselves aren't unusual in Oklahoma. 28 appearing under extremely strange circumstances is a little harder to explain. And very quickly, it becomes clear that these aren't normal storms. At one point, a tornado passes over a house, and the sound it produces is absolutely horrifying. It sounds like some enormous demonic animal howling directly above the building. And somehow, instead of hearing that and deciding to move to another continent, Hunter Graves decides he wants to start researching and chasing these tornadoes. What an absolute mad lad. He begins investigating the strange storm activity, trying to understand why these tornadoes are appearing and what exactly is happening inside them. The sounds alone are some of the creepiest parts of the series. There's something deeply uncomfortable about hearing what should be a natural weather event suddenly sounding alive. The first episode does a really good job of setting up that mystery without giving too much away. You understand enough to know that something is very wrong, but there are still so many unanswered questions. What is causing these tornadoes? Why are they behaving this way? And what the hell is hiding inside them? It's one of those first episodes that immediately makes you want to keep going because you need to know what explanation they're eventually going to give you. Hydra Theory is still very new, but based on what's there already, this could become one of the strongest analog horror series of the year. The Land. The Land is definitely the most emerging series on this list. At the moment, there isn't much of it. The first episode has only recently come out, and there's still nowhere near enough information to properly understand what the larger story is going to be. But there is already a lot to unpack. The episode revolves around the discovery of something hidden deep within the human brain. And without getting too far into spoilers, whatever has been discovered looks extremely unsettling. The concept immediately reminded me a little of The Boiled One. Because the stories are necessarily connected or even particularly similar, but there's that same uncomfortable feeling of something being present where it absolutely should not be. The episode gives you fragments of information without enough context to fully understand what you're looking at. And for a first episode, I actually think that works. There are plenty of possible directions the creator could take the story from here. Right now, it is impossible to tell. So I wouldn't put The Land on this list because it already has some massive established story. I'm putting it here because the first episode was interesting enough that I genuinely want to see what happens next. Definitely check this one out and keep an eye on it as more episodes release. Quiet Apocalypse is a little different from everything else on this list. It feels less like traditional analog horror and more like watching a movie assembled from footage of the end of the world. And visually, it might be my favorite one here. The series follows humanity after enormous floating creatures begin appearing across the world. And these things are fucking massive. They hang above cities and landscapes like impossible living structures, sometimes so large that your brain almost struggles to understand the scale of what you're looking at. The visual presentation does a huge amount of the work. There aren't constant jump scares, and the horror comes from watching the situation gradually become worse and realizing that humanity may genuinely have no answer for what has arrived. These creatures seem almost indestructible. They feel less like animals and more like some kind of cosmic force that has entered our world. People can observe and study, trying to understand them. But stopping these giants is another question entirely. And that gives Quiet Apocalypse this really heavy sense of cosmic dread. You slowly start realizing that the creatures may not even need to actively hunt humanity. Their existence alone could be enough to make our extinction inevitable. The pacing is very slow and atmospheric, so if you're looking for constant action, this probably isn't the series for you. But if you like slow burn horror where the atmosphere gradually becomes more hopeless, it does that extremely well. There's also something strangely melancholic about the whole thing. You're basically watching humanity slowly come to terms with the fact that something has appeared which we might simply be incapable of surviving. Volume 1 is already out, and if giant cosmic creatures, apocalyptic footage, and slow atmospheric horror sound like your thing, go watch it. I will keep an eye on these series and can't wait to see where they go. Subscribe if you like analog horror as much as I do.